morning, great afternoon, great evening. Welcome to our today's online class with Mr. Michael. This is our pure mathematics time as usual. Today we'll be looking at the cube roots of numbers. In our previous lessons, we learned how to get the cube of numbers. But now those cubes that we got their values, now we need to look into how to look for the cube roots of those numbers. The word root means the beginning. Those numbers that are given in large quantity, there are numbers that multiplied themselves to give those values. So we use those large numbers to look for those other numbers that are small that multiply themselves twice in terms of cube to give the root. So those numbers are the ones that are referred to as the root of those cubes. Example, we have the cube of 2 is 8. That means 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2 again, which is 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. So that is exactly what we are looking for. So today we'll be looking at the cube root of numbers. We have different methods of looking for cube root of numbers. We have the radical method and we have the prime factorization method. First of all, let's start with the radical method. In this radical method, there's a common number that can divide other numbers without any remainder. Example, 512 2 can divide 512 exactly without any remainder 9 times. 9 of those 2s will go. So let's say those 9 now, since we're dealing with the cube of numbers, you will have to, because that cube, the symbol for cube carries 3. So these numbers will be grouped into 3 in threes. For example, you open a bracket, you 2 times 2 times 2, you close it. You open a second bracket, 2 times 2 times 2, you close it. And you open a third bracket, 2 times 2, you close times 2, then you close it. Now, after grouping the 2s, you have to look for each and every one of those boxes, the parentheses or the bracket, bring out one, because all the numbers are the same. So you bring out 1, 1, 2 from each of them. You bring the first 2, you drop it, the second one you write it down, the third one you write it down, then multiply the 2 together. And even there are up to 5 groups, you will bring down the 5 2s, then multiply them by each other. So this one now they are up to 3, only 3. So we have 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, because 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So the cube root of 512 is 2. That means 8 cube, that means 8 times 8 times 8 will give us 512. There are cases that when you divide these numbers, you have like maybe you have 2 2 2, then you go into having 3 3 3 or 5 5 5. In this case, you will bring one number. For example, you have the 2, you have their 3, the 3 you have their 3, the 5 you have their 3. So you bring 1 2, bring 1 3, and bring 1 5. Then multiply them together. So whatever you have will be the cube root of the value that you are looking for. The second method is the prime factorization method. This one we use the method of LCM method. In the LCM method, we write our 512. Starting with the smaller number that can divide them, which is 2. 2 will divide 512 to give you 256. Divide it again to give you 228. Divide to give you 64. Divide 64 to give you 32. By 2 to give you 16. By 2 to give you 8. By 2 to give you 4. By 2 to give you 2. By 2 to give you 1. So bring out all these 2s. You group them in 3s, just like we did earlier. If there are 9, you group them 3 3 3 3. Then you take 1 1 1 2 from any of all the groups. But had it be there are 10, you take 1 1, then use the last 2, add up with them again. So when you bring these 2 1 1 1, you have 3 2s. Now these 3 2s, the first 2 will multiply the second 2, the second 2 will multiply the third 2, which will give you 8. That means 8 cube. That means 8 times 8 times 8 will give us 512. So 8 is the root of 512, because it's 8 that multiplied itself twice to give you 512. So the cube root of 512 is 8. So I believe this is as simple as the usual math that we normally solve. Just like we have the squares and the square root. Any number that multiplies itself twice or once will give you the square Now the cube of the root of that square will be the number that multiplied itself. It's the same thing that is applicable to cubes, just that these ones are larger number than the squares. So these ones are just an extension of squares and square root. So with this, I just encourage you to give yourself some certain numbers or expression, mathematical expressions, to find the cube of such number. But it's not every number that has cube roots. Yes, not all numbers have cube roots. Most especially prime numbers, they don't have cube roots, because if you choose like 16, though 16 is not a prime number anyway, if you choose 16, there's no number that can multiply itself 2 times to give you. For example, now 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. You come to 2, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, 4 times 4 is 16, times 4. So you see, some numbers don't have they don't have cube roots. They are not cube of any number, and those numbers don't have any cube root. So I encourage you to multiply number times 3, then look for a way to divide those numbers. You can use the division method, divide those numbers by 3, so you know the numbers that give rise to the values that you have. So I encourage you to evaluate yourself and make sure you understand it very well, or you give us an information in case there's any issue, so I know how to clear it out with you. I remain Mr. Michael, your all-time mathematics teacher. So I encourage you to be attentive and do what you can do for yourself while we do our own best. God be with you. Stay safe. Remain blessed.